Hi there, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I thought it would be fun to give you a little gift guide for book lovers. I have seen a couple of these going around here on BookTube, but those videos mostly focus on merch and accessories. And I thought it would be fun to give you some recommendations of books to buy for your loved ones. Maybe you're trying to find the perfect book for a loved one who has yet to discover reading, or you're trying to get them into reading and find the perfect book to give them that little nudge in the right direction. Or maybe you have a friend that is obsessed with reading but you don't know anything about it and you're trying to find their next favorite read. Or maybe you're just trying to find books to put on your own wishlist. No judgment whatsoever. Everyone is welcome here and I hope I can help you find the next perfect book for you and your loved ones. I thought it would be perfect to film this video in the gift giving season to help you out a little bit. But of course you can use this guide throughout the entire year. I mean, every situation is perfect for a new book in my opinion. I'll try to give you small summaries of books because there are a lot of books on here. It's actually a bit crazy. I mean, just look at this. I definitely let myself go a little bit. It is actually crazy how many books are on here. But I definitely hope it's helpful for you. I have made some little categories to have a bit of structure to this video. So let's start with the first one. The first category I have is books with movie and TV show adaptations, or movies and TV shows that are based on books. Some of the popular examples are A Good Girl's Guide to Murder or The Samaritan Pretty, but we also have a lot of Stephen King's books, Ready Player One, Wicked, The Martian, The Fault in Our Stars, Turtles All the Way Down, Divergent, The Hunger Games, Twilight, Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Murder on the Orient Express, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Daisy Jones and the Six, One Day, You, Anxious People, A Man Called Ove, Where the Crawdads Sing, Bridgerton, The Princess Diaries, The Vampire Diaries, Dune, Game of Thrones, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, The Maze Runner, Heartstopper, After, Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars. When I started looking into this, I started to realize that there are so many movies and TV shows that are based on books that it's actually impossible for me to name them all. And I'm also sure that I missed some really big ones. But these are some of the movies and TV shows that came to mind for me. But there are a lot more than you might think. So if you love a movie or your loved one is obsessed with a TV show or a movie, definitely look up if they are based on books. Because there is a pretty big chance it is. The next category I have is books like your favorite movies and TV shows. Or if you like this movie or TV show, you will definitely love this book. The first one is, if you loved Knives Out, I think you will love The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book is about Avery, who is currently living in her car. But her fortune changes when billionaire Tobias Hawthorne dies and she is called to the reading of his will. Here she learns that he left almost his entire inheritance to her, even though she has no idea who the man is. To receive the inheritance, she has to live in his estate called Hawthorne House for an entire year. The only catch is that Hawthorne House is also occupied with the family that was just disinherited, including his 4 grandsons. Avery is determined to figure out why Tobias left his entire inheritance to her, but to do that she has to solve all riddles, puzzles and codes that he left for her in the house. With help from the grandsons, of course. I think this book is perfect for people who love Knives Out, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Both of the movie and the book have a lot of puzzles and riddles that have to be solved, and I love that we follow the underdog in both stories. The next one is, if you love Criminal Minds, you will definitely love The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have never actually seen Criminal Minds, so I can't really say anything about it, but this book is constantly described as a YA Criminal Minds, or Criminal Minds for young adults. It is about Cassie, who one day gets recruited by the FBI together with some other teens. They are called the Naturals because they all have special abilities. Cassie is a natural at reading people, but everyone has their own skill. Because we also have a human lie detector, an emotion reader, and a literal genius. Together they start working on cold cases when a serial killer gets a little too close to our main characters, which results in them working on an active case. The Naturals is essentially about some FBI profilers who delve deeper into the minds of serial killers to see how they work and how they can stop them. Which I've been told is very similar to Criminal Minds. The next one is, if you loved Avatar: The Last Airbender, you will definitely love The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This might be more of a stretch though. The Prison Healer is about Kifa, who has been the prison healer of a death prison called Salindor for over 10 years. And she is just trying to survive. One day the rebel queen is brought into the prison with a message that says, "Don't let her die, we are coming." When the rebel queen is sentenced to a series of elemental trials, Kifa takes her place. The only problem is that no one has ever survived these trials. If you're thinking, that doesn't really sound like Avatar The Last Airbender, then you are correct. The main reason I put this book with the TV show is because elemental is a big part of both stories. But the relationship between the main characters in this book also really remind me of the relationship between the characters in Avatar The Last Airbender. So if you love the show and the summary sounds cool, then definitely give it a try. I have heard some people think that the first book is a little slow, but I loved it so much. And the series only gets better from here. Because yes, this is actually a trilogy, and I definitely think it deserves more hype. The next one is, if you love Spirited Away, then I think you will definitely love The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by XCO. Unfortunately, I have also never seen Spirited Away, so I can't really contest to the fact if they are similar or not. But the summary of the book literally says, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea is a magical feminist retelling of a classic Korean legend, perfect for fans of Uprooted and Miyazaki's Spirited Away. So I'll take it. This book is about Mina, and her homeland has been ravaged by storms for generations. Every year the people in her village sacrifice a girl to the sea god to become his bride. But every year the storms return. This year her brother's fiancé is chosen to be sacrificed, but she knows that this will break her brother. So she decides to throw herself into the sea instead. She gets swept away to the spirit realm, where she learns that the spirit god has been in an enchanted sleep for a very long time. To save her people, she must help the sea god. But she doesn't have much time, because humans can only stay so long in the spirit realm. And there are people who are determined to make sure that the sea god doesn't wake. This book has beautiful writing, and it just shows how important family is. It actually made me cry a couple of times. I just love it so much, and I think more people should read it. And it barely gives off Studio Ghibli vibes, so if you know someone who loves Studio Ghibli, definitely give this book a try. The next one is, if you love Mulan, then you will definitely love Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Spin the Dawn is about Maya, and she dreams of being the greatest tailor in the land. But as a girl, the best she can hope for is to marry well. When a royal messenger summons her sick father to court, Maya travels to the summer palace to take his place, posing as his son. Here she competes for the emperor's favor and becoming the imperial tailor. If Maya's ruse is discovered, she probably won't survive. But if she wins, she will save her family and achieve her greatest dream. But she soon learns that the competition is more challenging than she thought, because she is asked to sew 3 magical dresses for the emperor's bride-to-be. 1 from the laughter of the sun, 1 from the tears of the moon, and 1 from the blood of the stars. Accompanied by the mysterious court enchanter, Maya goes on a journey to search the moon, the sun, and the stars. Of course, you can probably see the inspiration here. In both Mulan and this book, our female main character poses as a man to save her father and her family. So the themes of family are pretty big in this story too. And just like a lot of Disney movies, this book is very magical. And on top of that, the book is rooted in Asian folklore and culture, which I thought was so interesting. Next is, if you loved Alice in Wonderland, then I think you will love Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Caraval is about Scarlet, and she has been dreaming of competing in Caraval ever since she was a little girl. Caraval is a faraway once-a-year performance where the audience participates in the show. Scarlet thinks her dreams of seeing Caraval are over once her father arranges a marriage for her. But this year, Scarlet's invitation finally arrives. Her sister Tella whisks her away to the show. But as soon as they arrive, Tella is kidnapped by Legend, the mastermind behind Caraval. It turns out that this season's Caraval is about Tella, and whoever finds her first wins. Scarlet must find Tella before the 5 nights of the game are over. But Scarlet has been told that Caraval is just an elaborate performance, and she can't seem to figure out what is real and what isn't. So in Caraval we never know what is real and what is part of the game. I think this aspect is perfect for people who love Alice in Wonderland, since it's also really whimsical and often compared to a fairy tale. Some people say that the spin-off series Once Upon a Broken Heart is actually more similar to Alice in Wonderland, but since the Once Upon a Broken Heart series is a spin-off, I recommend you read Caraval first. You don't have to understand the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but it does help to understand the world a little bit more. And if you're planning on reading both of them, then definitely start with Caraval, otherwise this series will be spoiled for you. Nevertheless, I think both are amazing and are definitely worth the read. The next one I have is, if you love the Avengers or any other Marvel movies, you will probably love Renegades by Marissa Meyer. In this world, some people have started to get superhuman abilities. One person can bleed crystals and make weapons out of them, and someone else can make his drawings come to life. These people are called prodigies. But not everyone uses these powers for good. In this book we see both the Renegades, which are basically like the Avengers, and the Anarchists, who are the villains. On one side we follow Nova, who is a part of the Anarchists, and she hates the Renegades because they promised to keep her parents safe, but they didn't. And on the other side we follow Adrian. He is part of the Renegades and he believes in justice and is looking for Nova's alter ego. When they meet, She keeps her alter ego a secret. But Nova isn't the only one who is hiding who or what she is. And the line between good and evil is starting to blur. This book is obviously about superheroes just like the Avengers. And it is just as action-packed as the movies. And on top of that, it is really easy to get through. Yeah, I don't think this one needs any more explanation actually. If you or someone you know love superheroes, then they and you will definitely love this book. The next one is, if you loved Gilmore Girls, you will probably like The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. When Jeannie's aunt gives her the Pumpkin Spice Cafe in the small town of Dream Harbor, Jeannie jumps at the chance to start fresh. She meets Logan, the local farmer, and a romance soon starts to ensue. I have to be really honest with you, I haven't finished this book yet. And I don't know if I will. This book did really remind me of Gilmore Girls, and it is always recommended to people who love the show. But to me the book was just a little too similar. We have a grumpy sunshine couple just like Luke and Lorelai. Some of the townspeople are direct rip-offs of some of the characters in Gilmore Girls. And I've heard that some lines that are in the show are in this book word for word. But if you want a simple and cozy read that gives off Gilmore Girls vibes, then why not try it, I guess? I've heard a lot of people actually really like it, so if it sounds good then definitely try it. Next one is, if you love The Summer Turned Pretty, then definitely try Every Summer After by Kylie Fortune. Percy has spent the summers of her childhood at the lakeshore in Barry's Bay with her brothers Sam and Charlie. Percy and Sam were inseparable, and eventually their friendship turned into something more. Before everything fell apart. We follow Percy a decade later, where she has replaced the summers at the lakeshore for an apartment in the big city. Until she receives a call that sends her back to Barry's Bay. When Percy returns to the lake, her connection with Sam is undeniable. She has to confront the decisions that she made years ago to see if their connection can grow into something more. This book is told over the course of 6 years and 1 weekend. We have a lot of flashbacks of how they met and how they became friends and what happened all those years ago. It has been compared to The Summer Turned Pretty multiple times, and I totally agree with that. I definitely got those vibes when I was reading it. And that is probably why I loved it so much. Flashbacks are a big part in both stories, and we see our main characters falling in love during the summer while hanging out with 2 brothers. I think this book is perfect for people who loved The Summer Turned Pretty, like myself. The next one is, if you loved Divergent, I think you will love Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. In this book we follow Violet, and she has to decide which quadrant she wants to be a part of. Her plan was always to join the Scribe Quadrant and live a quiet life surrounded by books and history. But now her mother, who's the commanding general, has ordered her to join the Dragon Riders in the Riders Quadrant, which is the most dangerous of all. Violet is smaller than everyone else and her body is brittle. And dragons don't bond with fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet just to better their chances. The rest would kill her just because she is her mother's daughter. Like Xaden Ryerson, who is the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. Violet needs every edge and her wits to just see the next sunrise. Even worse, she begins to suspect that leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Let me preface by saying I think Fourth Wing and Divergent are definitely very different. But they are also similar in quite a lot of ways. We of course have Quadrants, which is very similar to the factions in Divergent, where the Riders Quadrant is very much based on Dauntless. And on top of that we have Xaden, who feels an awful lot like 4. But of course the stories are also very different. Fourth Wing is a fantasy with dragons and Divergent is a dystopian story. But I think both give off very similar vibes. And I'm sure a lot of people who love Divergent will definitely love this book. It was a really popular book a while ago, so it is possible that someone has already read this. But a big plus, the 3rd book in the series, Onyx Storm, comes out in January of 2025, I believe. So if they loved it, they can immediately get the 2nd and 3rd book to continue the series. And the last one I have in this category is, if you loved The Hunger Games, then I think you will definitely like Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now this might be a bit of a controversial one. A lot of people love this book a lot, but I also know a lot of people who really didn't like it. And I fell somewhere in the middle. I actually really enjoyed it for what it was. In this world there are 2 types of people. The elites, who gained extraordinary abilities gifted by the plague, and ordinaries, who are just that. Ordinary. And the king has decided that being ordinary is a crime and all ordinaries are banished from the kingdom. We follow Peyton. She is an ordinary who lives in the slums. Her father taught her to pose as an elite to stay alive. But when Peyton unsuspectedly saves one of Ilia's princes, she finds herself thrown into the purging trials. A brutal competition who exists to showcase the elite's powers. The power that she lacks. She doesn't only have to survive the trials, but she also has to make sure that no one finds out that she is an ordinary. Especially not the prince, who will definitely kill her if he finds out. This book is compared by the Hunger Games, mostly because of the trials, but a lot of scenes feel very similar, because they are. Some of the scenes in this book have been directly taken from the Hunger Games. From having to do interviews to gain sponsors to Peyton's special skill being archery. But I personally didn't mind it that much. I love the Hunger Games, so something that is similar just feels very familiar to me. If you love something, why wouldn't you want more of it, right? So I think someone who loves the Hunger Games will probably enjoy Powerless. And on top of that, the third and final book in the series will come out in April of next year. So you or your loved one can read the entire trilogy back to back if you want to. I personally didn't love the second one in the series, but you know, I think the series is definitely worth a read because it is pretty fun. So this was the last book in this category and it took so much longer than I thought it would, so I'll try to get through the next categories a little quicker. The next category I have is books by movie genre. So if you know someone who loves sci-fi, then I would definitely recommend Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This book is about Ryland and he wakes up in a spaceship. But for some reason he can't remember his own name and doesn't seem to remember why he's there in the first place. The only thing he knows is that he's been asleep for a very long time and he has just awakened to find out that he is millions and millions of miles from home and there are 2 corpses in the spaceship with him. His crewmates are dead. His memories are slowly returning and Ryland realizes that there's an impossible task in front of him. Hurtling through space on this tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out this scientific mystery and save humanity and Earth itself. And with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he has to do it all alone. Or does he? I absolutely love this book and if someone loves the sci-fi genre, then I would definitely recommend this book. The next one is fantasy, and in the fantasy genre I would definitely recommend Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. To be really honest, this is one of my favorite books of all time and I just really wanted to have this book in here. I really wanted to recommend it for once, because I don't really see this online at all, like on BookTube or Bookstagram. I really don't see it and I want more people to know about it. This book is about Kellen and he is moments away from facing his first mage duel, and the start of 4 trials to make him a spellcaster. There's just one problem. For some reason, his magic is gone. As his 16th birthday approaches, Kellen falls back on his cunning, until a daring stranger challenges him to take a different path. Like I said, this is one of my favorite books of all time. This is actually one of the first books I read when I got back into reading. As I said, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this book, but it is so amazing. I love it so much. And there are actually 6 books in the main series and they aren't that long. None of them are that long. I just really love it and I hope more people will read it. So if you or someone you know really loves fantasy and this summary sounded good to you, then definitely try it out. And on top of that, there is a talking animal in this book, which is one of my favorite tropes of all time. So definitely check it out. Please. Please. Pretty please. Next I have is romance and I would recommend Emily Henry's books. I'm not the biggest romance reader, but some of the books I have tried are by Emily Henry. They weren't my favorite, but I think they are pretty good at getting you in the romance genre since they aren't just romance. There are actually also other plotlines going on. I have only read You and Me on Vacation and Book Lovers, and my personal favorite was You and Me on Vacation, or People We Meet on Vacation in America. This book is about Alex and Poppy and they've been going on vacation together for a pretty long time. 2 summers ago everything went wrong. Now they decide to go on one last trip together. What can go wrong? So we actually see a then and now timeline in this one as well. We see how they met, how they became friends, stuff like that, and what happened 2 summers ago. And of course we have the now perspective. I think it was really interesting and definitely a book to try if you are getting into the romance genre, just like the other Emily Henry books. I didn't absolutely love these 2, but I am so interested in reading Happy Place and Funny Story. And a big plus is that this book has been picked up to be made into a TV show, if I'm correct. So it's definitely something to look forward to. The next genre is superheroes and anti-heroes, and the book I have for you is Fishes by V.E. Schwab. No, I do know that superheroes and anti-heroes are not really a movie genre, but I just really wanted to talk about this book as well. I really wanted to get this one into the, if you love Marvel movies then you will probably love this one, but I thought Renegades was a better pick for that one. So I wanted to talk about Fishes in this category. This book is about Victor and Eli and they are roommates in college. A shared interest in adrenaline, near-death experiences, and seemingly supernatural events turn out to be an intriguing possibility. That under the right conditions, someone can become an EO, which means extraordinary. But when their thesis moves from academic to experimental, something goes horribly wrong. They both become EOs. 10 years later, Victor gets out of prison and is determined to get revenge on the man who put him there, Eli. And Eli has spent his years tracking down other EOs and killing them. So we see sort of a cat and mouse game going on between Eli and Victor, and we don't really know who's the hero and who's the villain. Because both of them are very morally grey. And I personally absolutely love that. So if you or someone you know really loves superheroes or supervillains or anti-heroes, the morally grey, then definitely try this one out. It is so worth the read. And there is actually a second book in the series which I personally loved, but I know a lot of people didn't like it. So you can stop with the first one, but I definitely recommend you also read the second one. The next genre is feel good, and I would recommend The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This wasn't my favorite book of all time, but it's just so cozy and it just gives you like this warm hug. So I definitely see why a lot of people do really love this one. This book is about Linus and he has led a very quiet life. One day he is summoned by extremely upper management and given a highly classified assignment. He must travel to an orphanage where 6 dangerous children reside, including the Antichrist. Linus must somehow determine if they could bring on the end of the world. But their guardian, charming and enigmatic Arthur, is determined to protect them at all costs. As I said, I thought it was really cute. It wasn't my favorite of all time, but I definitely enjoyed reading it. You or your loved one will definitely enjoy this too if they are in the mood for a feel-good book or just really like light and cozy stories. The next genre I have are dystopians. And in this category I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. In this world, we have advanced so much that death isn't a problem anymore. The only way to die in this perfect world is to be gleaned by a scythe. And we follow Citra and Ronan when they are chosen to become apprentices of scythes. They know they have no option but to learn the art of killing. However, the terrifying responsibility of choosing who to kill is just the start. And when they grow closer, they are told that one has to glean the other. I really love this book. It is part of a trilogy, and I think every book gets more interesting. So if someone is really interested in dystopian books like Divergent or The Maze Runner, then definitely try this one out. The next genre is horror, and the book that I have for you is Misery by Stephen King. This is a bit of a cop-out because Misery has a movie adaptation, so you could basically just watch the movie if you want to. But I think it is really interesting to just read the book too, to see maybe what is different in both of them. I actually have a video where I read Salem's Lot by Stephen King and then watch the movie to see all the differences between the movie and the book, which was amazing to do. It was so funny. And I think it is really funny to do that with friends maybe, so maybe you could do a little book club and both read a book and then both watch the movie together. That sounds so fun to me. But I have Misery because I absolutely love this book and it is a horror book. I am so sorry that I don't really have other recommendations for you, but I haven't really read a lot of horror, so if you are really interested in reading more horror books, then definitely try out some other videos from amazing creators here on BookTube. But if you didn't know, Misery is about an author named Paul, and in the beginning of this book we see him getting into a car crash, and he is saved by his biggest fan, Annie Wilkins. She takes him back to her house and nurses him back to health. But she wasn't kidding when she said she was his biggest fan, because she wants him to write a new book in her favorite series, and she won't let him go until he does. This book does get a little disturbing, especially in the last few chapters, but I mean, that's horror for you, I guess. I definitely really like this. Definitely try it out. The next genre I have is true crime, and for that one I would definitely recommend The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This is actually the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I also think A Good Girl's Guide to Murder would be perfect for someone who loves true crime, but I also think this is a very, very good one. This book is about Belle, who has lived in her mother's shadow for a very long time, because 16 years ago her mother Rachel disappeared, and Belle was the only witness. Now in the present, the case is wrapped up again and the Price family is willing to do a true crime documentary about it. Belle can't wait for the filming to finally end and life going back to normal, but then her mother Rachel reappears again. And life will never be normal. This book is so amazing. So we have a mixed media format because we have the true crime documentary, so the filming of all of that, and of course the story of what actually happened to her mother Rachel. There are so many plot twists in this one. I was so hooked on this book. I loved it a lot. So if your loved one really loves suspense and is really into the true crime genre, definitely try this one out. It is amazing and it will have you on the edge of your seat, and it isn't that long. So definitely try this one. The last genre I have for you is drama or dramedy, and I would recommend Anxious People by Frederick Backman, or actually just every book by Frederick Backman, because Backman is just amazing at combining humor and drama. So very serious topics that will definitely make you cry, but also pack a lot of humor into it, so it is still really enjoyable to read. Anxious People is probably my favorite book by him, but I love all of them. Frederick Backman is actually the author of A Man Called Ove and Beartown, but also a lot of other great books that you should definitely check out if you want a drama that is also mixed with a lot of humor. Frederick Backman is actually a Swedish author, but I think his books are translated to a lot of other different languages. I don't know if you heard anything about this one, but Anxious People is about a bank robber who accidentally robs a moneyless bank and tries to escape, but then accidentally walks into an open house into an apartment complex and accidentally takes all the potential buyers hostage. In present time, we follow the detectives who are trying to find out what happened in the apartment, and we see everyone in the apartment and see what actually happened once the bank robber disappears. This is so amazing. I laughed out loud a couple times, I cried a couple times. That actually always happens with Frederick Backman's books. He's definitely one of my favorite writers, and if you want to cry and laugh and just have a very meaningful read, then definitely try out his books. Not just Anxious People, but every one of them. The only one I haven't read is Beartown, but I really want to try it out too, because it has been getting more popular here on BookTube, and I love all of his other books, so why not? His books do have some very serious topics in them and a lot of trigger warnings. So definitely do look up those trigger warnings if you don't really want to read about stuff like that. In this book, depression is very prevalent, but every book has other themes. So definitely look up the trigger warnings. The next category I have for you are animation fiends. So people who love animation. Animation can of course be categorized in multiple sections, but the one I wanted to talk about is anime. So if you or your loved one really loves anime, then maybe try out some mangas. If you don't know what a manga is, it is very similar to a graphic novel or a comic book. And there are so many mangas out there, but the first one I want to talk about are mangas that have an anime adaptation. Or it might also be the other way around, an anime that has a manga adaptation. I have a couple of examples like Death Note, Attack on Titan, One Piece, and more wholesome ones like Spy Family, Your Name, or Fruits Basket. There are so many more, so if your loved one is really into anime, maybe try getting them a manga of their favorite anime, or try to get them into a new anime by giving them the manga first, so they can try it out that way. Next, we also have mangas that are based on video games like Persona 5 or a lot of the Zelda games. These mangas mostly follow the storyline of the games, so if someone is obsessed with Persona games, like my boyfriend, but they don't want to play the entire 150 hours again because they have played it multiple times already, maybe you can buy them the manga versions, because these mangas mostly cover the entire plot of the games. So maybe they can read about their favorite video games and see the entire story again without having to play it again. But we have been talking a little bit about the Ghibli movies as well. Did you know that some of the Ghibli movies were based on books? Like House Moving Castle and Castle in the Sky? So if someone really loves Studio Ghibli and loves the Ghibli movies, then why not try to give them a book of their favorite Studio Ghibli film? Like House Moving Castle. Next I have some books for people who love pictures more than words. Of course this is also more prevalent in mangas, but mangas are mostly based on animes. And if someone doesn't really love anime, then I also really recommend graphic novels. But we also have graphic novels that have TV show adaptations. Think about Heartstopper or Avatar The Last Airbender or Over the Garden Wall. In this case, if someone loved Avatar The Last Airbender, there are graphic novels that actually go farther than the shows. So some of these graphic novels actually follow our characters after what happened in the TV show. So if someone loves the TV show, you can definitely give those to them so they can be in that world with their favorite characters again. But you also have really great graphic novels that aren't really based on anything, like Garlic and the Vampire. I haven't read this one, but it sounds so cute, and I think a lot of people will really love this. This just sounds so cute, and there are so many more great graphic novels out there. Definitely look into this if someone you know really loves illustrations or loves pictures more than words. And we also have graphic novels that are based on books. There are actually a lot of graphic novels that are based on classics like 1984 or Lord of the Flies. So if someone is really into classics or they really want to try out a classic, but like me don't always understand what they are about because English isn't my first language, or they are maybe a younger reader, then definitely maybe try a graphic novel that essentially tells the same story but is more digestible because you see all these pictures. I am definitely going to try out more graphic novels in the new year because I think I am going to love those so much. And mangas and graphic novels are definitely a very quick read. My boyfriend isn't really of a reader himself, but I gifted him the Persona mangas and he actually really loves them. He really wanted to play Persona again, but it takes a lot of time to get through these games. So I gifted that one to him so he can see the entire story again. And I think it took him like 1 or 2 hours to finish one manga, so not too long, I think. Definitely try to read that in an afternoon, if you have the time of course. But again, mangas and graphic novels are a great way to get someone into reading. The next category I have is fairy tales. I think a lot of us grew up with fairy tales, like just the Disney movie fairy tale type or other fairy tales. The recommendations I have for you are some of your favorite fairy tales. Like, did you know that Peter Pan is actually based on a book by J.M. Barrie? Maybe get this for someone if they absolutely love Peter Pan. It isn't a very long book and they can see where the story came from. Also have Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland and a lot of other stories. A lot of other Disney movies, for example. But we also have the classic fairy tales in bind-ups like these, like Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen or maybe Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm. Like, this one is actually a very pretty edition. It is a bind-up of multiple stories. So if someone really likes fairy tales, why not get them, a lot of them, in a pretty bind-up like this? But aside from your favorite fairy tales, we also have favorite fairy tales with a twist, like the Twisted Tales. This is a book with short stories and all the short stories are actually based on Disney movies, but with a twist. Like, what if Snow White learned magic? What if Mulan became the Emperor's advisor? And what if Remy the Red met Colette first? This book is actually a collaboration of Disney and some authors you might know. So some authors took a very classic story like Cinderella and put a twist on it. So it's a little different than you're used to and it is very interesting to read about this. It is very fresh and I really liked it. I have the bind-up, the Twisted Tales anthology, but there are so many of these Twisted Tales out there. So if you know someone who, let's say, loved Rapunzel, then definitely get them What Once Was Mine. The opportunities are endless with this one. Or if they loved a lot of Disney movies, then definitely get them this bind-up that has a lot of stories in it. I love this one and they definitely will too. The next category I have are books that are inspired by fairy tales. There are actually a lot of books that have been inspired by fairy tales, so are just a fairy tale but maybe a different retelling of it. So some parts have been changed, but you can definitely see the inspiration. So if someone really loves Beauty and the Beast, then why not try A Court of Thorns and Roses? This book is about Feyre and she hunts to help her family stay alive. One day she hunts a wolf, but unbeknownst to her, he was actually a magical creature that turned out to be Fae. She is taken prisoner by a high Fae lord. But Feyre learns that her masked captor is hiding even more than she thought. But as Feyre's feelings for the High Lord are starting to burn through every warning that she has ever heard about his kind, a shadow is fallen over the land. And if Feyre cannot fight it, she will lose everything. This is actually a very, very popular book on BookTube and BookTok. So if you know someone that loves reading, they have probably already read this one. But I think this is perfect to get into fantasy, and if they really love Beauty and the Beast, then I think they will love this as well. Next one I have is Cinderella, and I would definitely recommend Cinder or the entire Luna Chronicles. I don't really know what this is about that much, I haven't read it myself, but I am definitely planning on reading the entire series. I do know that the first one, Cinder, is a Cinderella retelling, but it is a sci-fi story, and Cinder, or Cinderella, in this world actually is a cyborg. So I think one of her legs is actually metal instead of her just losing her shoe. Like I said, I don't know anything more about it, but I do know that the Luna Chronicles is like 4 books long and every book follows a different fairy tale character. So the first one is Cinder. I think we also follow Snow White, Rapunzel and Red Riding Hood. So if that sounds good, then definitely check it out. I know I'm going to. Hi! Hello, as you can probably tell, it is the next day. It just got way too dark out yesterday, so we're going to finish the video off today. Where did I leave you? Oh yes, the next category I have for you is retellings and myths. Of course, there are so many myths and retellings. I've already talked a little bit about retellings in the last category. But we also have so many myths that are just rooted in folklore and just mythology and stuff like that, which is so cool. And I think one of the more popular mythologies has to be Greek mythology. Over the last couple of years, there have been so many books that are based on Greek mythology and so many people who have loved it. Of course, we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which was so popular a couple of years ago, which is actually based on the myth of Achilles, of course. But we also have some feminist retellings like Ariadne, Electra and Circe. And maybe the most popular example has to be Percy Jackson. Of course, this is also based on a lot of Greek mythology. So if someone in your life really loves Greek mythology, then why not try one of these books? I personally really recommend Percy Jackson. It is great for young readers and older readers. I personally also know that my brother's girlfriend is obsessed with Greek mythology, so I'm definitely going to give her a book for Christmas about Greek mythology this year. So if they really love myths or mythology, why not just give them a fictional version of their favorite myths? Or maybe give them a bind-up of some real mythology, and maybe get them a special edition or something. Apart from Greek mythology, we of course have so much mythology. There are so many cultures and so much folklore and stories about everything, but one of the mythologies that interest me the most has to be Asian mythology. And of course, I already talked a little bit about The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which is a feminist retelling of a classic Korean legend, which is so amazing. So if you are very interested in Asian mythology, then why not check it out? And another example I have for you is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I don't really know what culture this is rooted in, but I do know it's been based on some very popular myths and stories, like The Wild Swans, Cinderella, The Legend of Chang Yi, and The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. So if any of those stories sound really cool to you, or maybe you know them from your childhood and you really want to read something that focuses on that or has some of these elements in it, then I think this is a perfect book to read. And it also has a second book in the series. So if you really liked it or if someone really loved this, then you can definitely buy the second book. And there's also a prequel out now, which is called Her Radiant Curse, which I really want to read. But of course, someone can also read that if they love this. Apart from that, there are so many more books that are based on culture and myths and stuff like that. These are some of those examples I have read and absolutely loved, but if you want to see more, then maybe try to look up some other videos. The next category I have for you are for the gamers in your life. Of course, we have games that are based on books like The Witcher. So if someone you know really loves The Witcher, then there's actually an entire book series about it. So if they really love the story, then why not give them the book that the game was based on? And I'm sure there are so many more games that are actually based on books that you don't really know about, so definitely look that up. But of course, we have so many different gamers. There are so many games out there, so I actually got a couple books together for different gamers in your life. The first one is the cozy gamer in your life, so people who probably love Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing. And the first book I have for cozy gamers is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book is about Viv. She's an orc and she has done quests all her life. She loves the adventure and she goes on rampages with her crew. But one day she decides that she actually doesn't want to do this anymore. She just wants to live a quiet life. So she goes to live in a small town and start a little coffee shop. But coffee isn't really a thing in this fantasy world. She is trying to make everyone discover coffee, and we see how she finds out what it's like. See how she and her friends discover cinnamon buns and stuff like that. It's just so cozy, and it is perfect for someone who just loves the cozy games because it has the most amazing vibes and you can just curl under a blanket with this one. In the same realm, we also have Bookshops and Bonus by Travis Baldree. This is actually the prequel to Legends and Lattes, which is just as cozy. This book actually followed Viv a couple of years before, where she has been on a quest with her crew, but she gets injured. So the crew leaves from the small little beach town to rest and get back to health. With nothing really to do, Viv just explores the little town and figures out that there is a little bookshop in town that is run by a talking mouse named Fern. Viv discovers her love for reading and actually starts to work in the bookshop. And we also see her get to meet the townspeople, and we just see her develop relationships and live this quiet life while all she wants to do is fight. It is so amazing. I love it so much. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I am also a cozy gamer, so I have another book for this category, which is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This book is about Emily, and she is a researcher, and she goes to a little snowy town to do some research about fairies and other magical creatures. Emily is a little introverted, and the people in town are a little grumpy, so it's hard for her to actually develop relationships, but when she does, it is so cute. And we also see her academic rival Wendell show up. I think this is absolutely perfect for people who love Stardew Valley because it is just so rooted in nature, and we of course see her develop relationships with the townspeople, which is also very similar to Stardew Valley. So definitely try to pick this up if this sounds interesting or if this sounds perfect for that special someone in your life. From cozy gamers we dive right into epic gamers. So people who like Elden Ring, God of War and other games like that. For those people, I would recommend the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, or just Brandon Sanderson's books in general. In this series, it is just like the villain has won the war, and we see our characters just trying to survive in this world. In this world, we actually have a magic system that is based on metal, and people can absorb metal. And every type of metal gives you special abilities. But you can only use one. But for some reason, the Mistborns can use multiple metals at a time. And our main character, Finn, is one of the Mistborn. And we see her joining a crew that is trying to fight the villain. I didn't love this one as much because I read it when I was just getting back into reading and I didn't really like the political intrigue, but I am so excited to try this again because I have been reading a lot more fantasy and I really want to get into some more epic fantasy. I think the world building is amazing and I think that is perfect for people who love epic games. So definitely try out Mistborn or any other of Brandon Sanderson's books. Talking about world building, the next one I have for you is people who really love RPGs, which are role-playing games, something like Baldur's Gate. And I would definitely recommend the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. This book is about Cal and he is a traveler, which means that he can travel between different versions of London. We have Grey London, which is dirty and crowded without any magic. Red London, where life and magic are revered. White London, ruled by whoever has murdered their way up to the throne. But once upon a time, there was Black London. I think this is perfect for people who love RPGs because we see so much world building and it is so interesting, and we see Cal going on quests, which is also a really big part of RPGs in my opinion. And I just think that people who love RPGs are going to love the Shades of Magic series. It is such an amazing series, I really loved it, and I am convinced that someone who loves RPGs like Baldur's Gate is going to love this so much. You know, I actually also had Spellslinger on this list, like for people who love RPGs, but I have already talked about Spellslinger, so I'm not going to do it again, but just read Spellslinger, okay? It's one of my favorite books of all time, so please just read it. Or gift it to someone, please. The next one I have is for the people who love narrative games, so something like Life is Strange. And for those people, I would definitely recommend The Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern. This book talks a lot about choices and the power of stories, but it also actually talks a lot about games in general, because our main character is obsessed with games and he is doing a thesis about gaming. So we see a lot of talk about games in this one. In the beginning of the story, our main character actually goes to a little group who have a discussion about narrative games, which is really interesting. I really enjoyed that part. And this book is just about the art of storytelling, which is very prevalent in narrative games, and I think a lot of people love it because of that. So I think this one is really great if someone loves narrative games like Life is Strange, like I do. Now we're going to get very specific, because I have some books that I wanted to recommend for specific games and franchises. So the first one is The Legend of Zelda, and I would definitely recommend The Gilded Wolves by Roshan Chokshi. This book takes place in the late 1800s and we follow Severin, who is coerced to help the Order of Babel on a mission. Severin calls upon an unlikely band of experts, and together they will join Severin in the dark and glittering heart of Paris. But I mostly think that this is perfect for people who love The Legend of Zelda, because there are so many puzzles that they have to solve, and there are actually dungeons that they have to go through to get further and solve the mystery. And there are actually some pretty great boss fights at the end of every level. So this is perfect for people who love The Legend of Zelda. This one is even more specific because I really wanted to recommend a book for a specific game, and I really love this game and I really love the book, so I really wanted to talk about it. The game I wanted to talk about is Dredge, and the perfect recommendation in my opinion is Deep Light by Frances Harding. I hope I said it right. This is about two best friends who live on an island and they are scavengers. They are diving for relics of the gods, desperate to sell everything they can find. But now there is something restless stirring beneath the waves, calling to someone who is brave enough to retrieve it. Something valuable, something dangerous. Nothing as quiet as it seems, and when the waves are trying to claim one of the best friends, the other one will do anything in his power to save him, even if it means a death-defying journey into the strange dark light of the undersea. To not only face who his best friend has become, but also what. I think this book is so amazing and it deserves so much more hype. As you can probably tell by the cover and the summary, I think this is actually a horror, just like I think Dredge might actually be a horror game. It is so creepy because we see a lot of things going on underwater, and I am actually really scared about underwater things, but I thought this book was so cool. It is so atmospheric. It is just hauntingly beautiful. If you or someone you know loves the Dredge, then they will absolutely love Deep Light. I'm just convinced of it. Definitely read it, it is amazing, and like I said, it deserves so much more hype. The last one in this category is just actually people who love games in general. And the first one I have for you here is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. It is possible you already know this book because there is a pretty big movie about it. But this is about Wade, and he lives somewhere in the future where there is an oasis, which is actually just a very, very big VR world where everyone goes to escape the real world. The oasis is a virtual utopia where you can be anyone you want to be. But when the founder of the oasis, James Halliday, dies, he promises to leave his entire fortune to the person who can solve all his puzzles that he has left throughout his creation. For years people have struggled to solve this mystery. The only thing they know is that James Halliday was obsessed with 80s pop culture. But then, Wade stumbles on the first key to the puzzle. I think this is perfect for the people who love games because there are so many Easter eggs and so many references to great games from the 80s, but also just games in general. And a lot of pop culture, which I think a lot of people also really love. And if you already read this or someone you know already really loves this, then maybe you didn't know that there's actually a second book in the series, which is called Ready Player 2. I also really love this one, and it is definitely worth a read if you love the first one. The next one I have for game lovers in general is Warcross by Marie Lu. Warcross is a game that has started to become an obsession that spans the entire globe. Struggling to make ends meet, teenager and hacker Amika Chen works as a bounty hunter, tracking down people who bet on the game illegally. To make some quick cash, Amika takes a risk and hacks into the Warcross championships, only to accidentally glitch into the game herself and become an overnight sensation. She is convinced she will be arrested for this, but the game's creator actually gives her an irresistible offer. He needs to spy on the inside of this year's tournament to uncover a security problem, and she is the perfect person for the job. With no time to lose, Amika gets whisked off to Tokyo and thrust into a world of fame and fortune that she has only ever dreamt of. But soon her investigation uncovers a sinister plot, with major consequences for the entire game. I think this is perfect for people who really love games because of course we have an entire game in this book, and it is so amazing because you have so many people that are in this book that are competing and just love games a lot, and they are talking about it a lot. So I think someone who loves games will definitely love Warcross. And the last book I have for game lovers is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is actually the only book on here that isn't a fantasy or a sci-fi. This is actually a literary fiction about two people who become friends because of their love for gaming. And we follow them over the years as they build relationships and build games together. We really get to know the characters and we actually see how they build these games, which I thought was so amazing. I loved it so much. I think this is perfect for everyone who loves games or everyone who is interested in building games. It is still a fictional story, so no non-fiction, but it is just so perfect to follow these characters and see their games come to life. I loved it so much, and it was very popular a while ago, so a lot of people actually seem to love it. So definitely try this out, or make someone else try it out. It is just so good in my opinion. Definitely perfect for a game lover. I have been talking for so long, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, because I have to edit all of this and have to get it up before Christmas. But you know what, it is really fun to film, so who cares. The next category I have for you are some popular books. So maybe you really want to get into reading yourself, or you just really want to see what books are popular right now. But of course we have a lot of genres to go through, so I will go through them pretty quickly. Just talk a little bit about the books that are really popular right now or have been really popular a while ago. The first genre is fantasy or romantasy, and some of the most popular books are by a very popular author actually, which is Sarah J Maas. So we have the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, the Crescent City series, where the first one is A House of Earth and Blood, and we have the Throne of Glass series. Like I said, all of these series are fantasy, but these series are so popular for a reason because a lot of people love it so much. If you want someone to get into fantasy, or they just really also love romance but want to see what fantasy is like, then maybe let them try some Sarah J Maas. I really enjoyed these series. It can be kind of controversial which series you prefer, but I think my ranking would be in third place I would say the Crescent City series, in second place I would say the Throne of Glass series, and of course in first place I would say A Court of Thorns and Roses. But I think everyone loves them for different reasons, and I just think they are so great, and especially great if someone is just getting into fantasy and maybe wants a little romance on the side. Both the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and the Throne of Glass series are just plain old fantasy, I guess, but the Crescent City series is actually an urban fantasy that involves a murder mystery. So definitely see which one intrigues you the most. But I think it is also so interesting that all of these series actually connect in some way, which is so cool. So if someone really wants to get into a very, very big world, but just wants a very interesting story, then definitely make them try this out or try it out yourself. Some of the very popular fantasy books right now is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which I already talked a little bit about. A lot of people also really love this. Like I told you, it is a bit controversial because some people really didn't like it. But if someone is just getting into fantasy again, I think this is perfect. And if someone really loves the Hunger Games, like I told you before, and is really in the mood for a romance with a lot of banter. One of the other books that is so popular right now is definitely One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I have talked a little bit about previous videos about this one. I liked it, wasn't in love with it, but a lot of people love it so much. It is definitely a dark atmospheric read and it's more gothic. It is about a magic system that revolves around tarot cards, so if someone really likes that, then definitely try it out. It is more of an autumnal read though, but of course you can read it anytime you want. Another book that is so extremely popular, but was mostly popular a while ago, is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which you probably heard about because you have the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix, which actually also includes a lot of the Six of Crows story. This book is about the criminal prodigy Cas Brecker. And he gets the chance to do a heist for a lot of money, but he can't do it alone. So he gets a group of outcasts together. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wrath, a heartrender who is using her powers to survive the slums, and a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. I think this book is most known for the found family trope in it, which is just so amazing. This group of characters just has the most amazing relationships between all of them, and I just really love this one. It is also set in a city that is kind of based on Amsterdam, which I think is really interesting because I'm from the Netherlands, so I really like to see how someone interprets Amsterdam. But this is still a fantasy, so it is mostly set in the past or just a magical world. Together they are going to do a heist to retrieve a hostage that has knowledge that will change magic forever and of course get a lot of money. This is one of the first books I read when I got back into reading and I loved it so much, and it is one of my favorite books of all time and a lot of people love it. It has an amazing rating on Goodreads. I actually have never met someone who hasn't loved this book. I think this is one of the most perfect recommendations for someone who is just getting into fantasy or is just really a fantasy lover. I think this is perfect for every reader. Of course, we also have the Raven Boys. I have just discovered this one and it is so great. I was so intrigued with this one. I read it in such a short time and it definitely got me out of my reading slump. It is about Blue and she lives in a house with all types of clairvoyants. Her entire family is clairvoyant, but she is pretty ordinary. The only thing she does is amplify their powers. Every year she and her mother go to this church where they see ghosts of people who are going to die in the next 12 months. Normally they just help people out who live in the town. But like I said, Blue has never seen these ghosts, but she is just there to amplify her mother. But this year, she actually sees the ghost of a 70-year-old boy who only seems to be able to talk to her. And she learns that the reason she can talk to him is either because he is her true love or she is the one who kills him. Which is really interesting because since her family is clairvoyant, they actually have a prophecy about Blue, which is that if she kisses her true love, he will die. I love this one so much. I absolutely love the clairvoyant aspect, so if someone is really into that stuff, then I think this is perfect. It is so easy to get into, but it's just so beautifully written. I think it is perfect. I'm actually reading this series right now and I'm the 4th book and I can't recommend the series enough for everyone. If you have been reading a lot of books already, then I just think this one is so fun and perfect. And definitely if someone is getting into reading, I think this is also really good because it has amazing world building and the characters are just so great and the found family is so amazing. The relationships are just so cute and so witty. I just really love it and I think a lot of people will too. And the last book that might be one of the most popular ones on here is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I have already told you what this book is about, so I won't tell you a lot more about it, but like I said, if this really sounds interesting to you, then definitely try it out. I mean, who doesn't want to read about dragons, right? And a big plus, they're in a school, which I really like in my fantasy. Can you tell I'm really a fantasy reader because I actually have so many more fantasy books, but I will restrain myself and we'll go on to the next genre, which is sci-fi. For sci-fi, one of the more popular ones in my opinion is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is so amazing. It is actually mostly described as a Hunger Games in space and I think that is so true. This book is about Darrow. He is a miner on Mars and he is a red, which is the lowest class in this hierarchy. His mission is to extract precious elements to one day be able to live on Mars again. But this is extremely dangerous. But one day he realizes that there are actually people already living on Mars. Of course, These are the more rich people, the people who are higher up in the hierarchy. He is so mad because his people have been risking their lives for nothing. Together with some rebels, he decides to infiltrate the golds, which are the highest in this hierarchy, and take them apart from the inside out. But to do that, he has to go to a command school, which is basically a massive battlefield. Like I said, it is like the Hunger Games, but just in space. It is really mature and there are some pretty big trigger warnings though. But this is definitely a great recommendation for someone who loves sci-fi or is getting into it. Another sci-fi book that is very popular is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I have not read this one, but I am very interested in it. I think this follows Spencer, who is trying to become a pilot to fight the aliens. I really don't know. I don't know anything about it, but I am really interested in this one and it is Brandon Sanderson, so it'll probably be great. So if someone is really into sci-fi and that sounded good, then definitely try that one out. And of course, one that is also very popular and one of my favorite books of all time is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I have already talked about this one, but again, it sounds amazing. If someone is really into space or science, then definitely try this out. And it is so humorous, actually. It sounds weird, but it's actually pretty cozy and it is so funny. So definitely try this out if you want a great sci-fi read. The next genre is romance, which I don't really read a lot of, so I have watched a couple videos that talk about it. A lot of books that I have seen going around here on BookTube that are really popular are the Chestnut Spring series, a lot of books by Abby Jimenez, and of course a lot of books by Emily Henry. I don't really know a lot about these. I am just not really a romance reader, but I really wanted to recommend you some. So definitely go look if these sound interesting to you and definitely try them out or make someone else try them out. Of course, we also have some thrillers. A lot of books that are very popular in this genre are House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, Rock Paper Scissors by Alice Feeney, and In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I have actually read all of these and I think they are perfect for someone who is trying to get into thrillers. I didn't love them all, but I just think thrillers are such quick reads and a lot of people will probably love these a lot. I have been talking for so long that I'm not trying to give you any more long summaries, so I am trying to get through these as quick as possible. Next genre I have is Dark Academia, and the first book that is very popular is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which I already talked a little bit about, but this is just the embodiment of Dark Academia. So if someone really wants to try out a Dark Academia and this sounded good, then definitely try it out. And the next one I have is If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. This is about a friend group that is obsessed with Shakespeare. They go to an elite conservatory. And Oliver notices that his talented classmates actually play the same role on stage and off stage. We've mostly followed these characters as they go to school and do Shakespeare plays. They're actually very pretentious, so they actually quote Shakespeare on the regular. But we also follow Oliver 10 years later when he has just gotten out of prison for a murder he didn't commit. On the day of his release, he is greeted by the detective who put him there, and he really wants to hear the story of what actually happened 10 years ago. So we see Oliver talk to the detective and we see 10 years ago how the entire story played out and what actually happened all those years ago. I think this is perfect for someone who loves Dark Academia because it takes place in a school, a very elite school, and of course we see a lot of Shakespeare elements. I don't think you have to know anything about Shakespeare to read this because I don't know anything about it and I loved it a lot. So I think if this sounded interesting, then you will definitely love this. And the last genre I have is YA mystery, and one of the more popular books I have is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which I also already talked about. But I think this is perfect for someone who is trying to get into mystery, and a YA mystery is a young adult mystery, so someone who is less into maybe an adult story and really wants to read about some teens who solve serial killer cases. And one of the absolute most popular books in YA mystery is definitely A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I'm saying that this is one of the most popular ones out there because I have seen so many people talk about this. That is actually the reason why I picked it up. But it's also popular because the TV show just came out this year. So if you really want to read this book, it is so amazing. It's even better than the TV show in my opinion. And if you really want to see where the source material came from, or you just really want to read this and then watch the series, then definitely try it out. But let's say you or someone you know already read a lot of popular books. Then I have some recommendations based on those popular books. So if you read and really loved Ekatar, then maybe you will love A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This is about Harper. She lives in our world and one day she sees a man almost kidnapping a woman in the streets. And she rushes to save her. But instead of the girl getting kidnapped, she gets kidnapped to a magical world. In this world, Prince Ren is cursed. He is forced to repeat the autumn of his 18th year, and he can only be freed if a girl falls for him, which is where Harper comes in. So as you can see, this is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I think they have a lot of similar elements, and I loved both books a lot. So if you really liked A Court of Thorns and Roses, then you will definitely like A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I also think that if you really loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, then you will definitely love the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. This book is about Stevie, who goes to a boarding school in Vermont, and in this boarding school, everyone has their own special skills that they can learn about. And Stevie is a true crime aficionado. Years ago, the wife and daughter of the founder Ellingham were kidnapped. The only clue was a mocking riddle listing methods of murder, signed with the pseudonym Truly Devious. Their disappearance became one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. And Stevie Bell, as the true crime aficionado that she is trying to solve the case all these years later. But then Truly Devious makes a surprise return. So as you can probably tell, these are both about a girl that is trying to solve a mystery that happened years ago. And I really think that if someone really loves A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, they will definitely love Truly Devious. And as you see, there's an entire series about it, so you can definitely binge the entire series if you or someone else wants to. The next one is, if you really loved Six of Crows, then you should definitely try The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. I know I've just talked about this one, so I won't do it again, but I just think that both books are pretty similar in some ways, because of course they have a band of unlikely characters that become very great friends and have a lot of great banter and are just some found family. They actually also both include a heist. They are so different from each other, but they definitely have the same vibes, and I definitely think that if you loved Six of Crows, you will love The Gilded Wolves, and definitely the other way around too. The last one I have here is, if you loved Every Summer After, then you will definitely love Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I have not read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I do know that this book is also very popular, but I have heard that these books are very similar in plot, so I think that if you loved one, then you will definitely love the other. The next category I have is special editions. Like, maybe give someone a special edition of their favorite book. Like, I have this special edition of Harry Potter, which is an illustrated edition, and I absolutely love this one so much. I have the first, the second, and the third in the series, which is so special. If someone really loves a book, then maybe just consider giving them a special, beautiful edition of what they already love. But you can also just get them a special edition of maybe some fairy tales, like I told you before. This is just a very beautiful edition of fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen. But you have a lot more of these types of books, which are just very pretty and are just some bind-ups of your favorite fairy tales. Apart from that, you can of course also give them a special edition of some classics. So I actually have these classics from the Bronte sisters. This is just such a beautiful book, and I think it is a great way to give someone their favorite or a new book that they haven't read yet but are just amazing to display. Even if they don't want to read it, it is just an amazing display piece. I also have the Stories of Sherlock Holmes, which is just a beautiful edition. It is very chunky, so it is really impractical to hold when you're reading it, but still it is just so beautiful, and if you really want to read something out of it, you definitely can. And of course, you can also give them a different version of their favorite book, because you have a lot of US versus UK covers. So I have this Once Upon a Broken Heart version. This is the UK cover, especially the exclusive edition from Waterstones. So you can also give them the exclusive edition, but this is the UK version opposed to the US version that looks like this, which is very different. So maybe they really like this version instead of the US version and just really want it. You also have Barnes & Noble exclusives, or like I said, Waterstones exclusives, but maybe just try to give them their favorite book in a different version. I know I would definitely love this, because I know that someone has paid attention to my favorite books. And one idea I think is really cool is that for Christmas my mother is going to give my brother's girlfriend her favorite children's book in Greek, because she is trying to learn Greek. I think it is so great that she gets to read her favorite book of all time in a language that she is trying to learn and is so interested in. And I think that is a perfect example. Like, if someone's favorite book is a Fredrik Backman book, maybe get them in Swedish for them. I don't know. I just think that is a really interesting idea too. And if you're looking for some smaller gifts this season, then maybe try out some bookmarks. I personally have these, which is a bookmark by Leora Eileen here on BookTube, and I would also love something like this. Or maybe buy them a book nook, which they can build themselves and display on their bookshelves. Or something else that they can display on their bookshelves, like little plushies or Funkos or something like that. Or maybe buy them something that relates to their favorite books or series, like bookmarks again, or mugs, or whatever. I know it's really hard to get stuff like that here in the Netherlands, but it's probably a lot easier for those of you who are in the US. but I still think that these are some cute little gifts as well. And lastly, I think something like a book light would be very handy and fun. My boyfriend actually gifted me one for Christmas 2 years ago, but sadly it broke. And I thought it was really handy and wouldn't mind getting another one, to be honest. I might even get one for myself if I don't get one for Christmas this year. But this is actually all I have for you guys today. I really enjoyed making this list. This video is definitely a longer one, but I'm sure I still missed a lot of great books. These are just some of my recommendations, but there are so many amazing books out there. But I still hope you got some good recommendations for yourself or for someone else to force them to read books. No, I'm kidding. I hope you found a book that you think they will love or you will love yourself, and that this guide was at least somewhat helpful. Definitely let me know which book you've decided to gift your loved one or which one intrigues you the most. And as always, please let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Thank you so much for watching, have an amazing holiday season, and Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a very cozy gift giving season, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!